Hey everybody, it's Chief Meteorologist Brad Panovich here. Thanks for tuning in tonight. We're going to start talking about this winter storm which is heading our way. And some of us are going to see some pretty good snow. Some of us are going to see a lot of rain, unfortunately. I think some folks will be surprised by the snow, especially tomorrow. We'll talk about maybe a little area that could see a quick burst of snow, but most of us are going to see a miserable cold rain with just a little bit of snow mixed in at times. So let's get right to the radar tonight, because the interesting thing about the radar tonight is we do have some rain mixed with snow and sleet moving in right now. And what I'm talking about is this area right in here. I'm getting several reports from spotters down in this area, as well as the radar showing some wet snowflakes or sleet. We call this bright banding. When you see these really bright returns, now typically in the summer, spring, fall, you'd say that's really heavy rain. Well, heavy rain bounces the radar beam back, but so does wet snowflakes or sleet pellets. They tend to reflect the radar beam back more efficiently. So when we see that, especially in a setup like we have tonight, we likely know that's either wet snow or sleet intersecting the radar beam, probably around 2,000 to 3,000 feet. The radar beam over Charlotte's about 5,000 to 6,000 feet. Down here over Chester and York County, it's around 2,000 to 3,000 feet. So that would give it enough time to reach the surface before it completely melts. Now, if you've missed any of the updates today, here's the latest winter storm warnings and advisories. You can see all the counties in pink. That's a winter storm warning, expecting 3+ inches of snow up there, possibly. The areas in blue, winter weather advisories, lesser amounts of snow, but likely high impacts, especially the northern part of these counties. Remember, the whole county has to be issued the advisory, even if half the county gets it. So down to the south doesn't mean we won't see snow in these areas, just means it's going to be a lot lighter and it's going to mix with a lot of rain at times. So let me show you how things are going to unfold tonight as the system approaches. You see the system moving in, and again, look where the snow is primarily up there towards the mountains and foothills. As the low pressure cranks up on the coast, it's going to start wrapping around not only cold air at the surface, but this trough is actually a pocket of cold air in the mid and upper levels of the atmosphere. So that actually sets the table for cold air working its way down to the surface. And as that cold air works its way down to the surface, we actually tend to see snow make it down to the ground, even when air temperatures at the surface are slightly above freezing. I think one of the biggest myths about snow is people think it has to be below freezing at the surface. It does not. It only has to be cold above our heads. You technically could get snow or sleet sometimes as high as the mid and upper 40s. I've even seen sleet at 50 degrees. That's because it's cold above our heads and the layer of warm air at the surface is very shallow. Now, what helps us out with the snow late tomorrow is that cold air aloft starts lowering the freezing level almost all the way to the ground. Doesn't quite make it to the ground, but close enough that the snowflakes can survive their journey from the cloud all the way to the ground and then melt instead of melting on the way down. And that quick burst of snow, it's difficult to say exactly where it's going to happen. It's going to happen somewhere in the Piedmont, maybe even upstate South Carolina. It's like forecasting a pop-up thunderstorm. You know it's going to happen somewhere in a certain area, but the exact location is difficult, especially as the setup looks like it's going to develop somewhere on the backside of this low, and then it's going to move out, and you can see the colder air coming in on the backside. And I actually think the worst road conditions will end up being Friday night into Saturday morning. So let me show you the hour-by-hour close-up. You see we've already got precipitation moving in. If I go slowly through time, around midnight, it should really start to pick up. Notice where the blue is. That's where we expect mainly snow, wet, heavy snow. And also notice the temperatures. This is why I get a lot of people ask me about, Brad, how are the roads going to be? The road question is always difficult because obviously, I've been here 20 years almost. I grew up in the north. I travel to snowy places. I don't mind driving in the snow. It's really not that big a deal. But for some of you, it might be a bigger deal. Some of you have trouble driving in the rain, so this might not be fun travel. But as far as it being really, really icy, not during the day tomorrow, mainly because it's going to be in the mid-30s and it's going to be melting on the way down. So I really think the primary roads will be slushy to wet during the day tomorrow. Now, it doesn't mean they couldn't get some snow on them, but most people's cars and tires are going to handle this. The areas of biggest concern are going to be where temperatures are at or near the freezing mark. Those are locations where the roads could get covered and become slick. But even with snow falling down here, it's probably going to be less of an issue during the middle of the day. It's just going to be sticking to the tree branches, the rooftops, grassy surfaces, decks. Now here comes that burst of big snow sometime in the afternoon. Now, this is just one look at it. This band of snow could be here, could be here, could be here, could be here, could form all the way to our east. We know it's going to be somewhere in this area, somewhere in here. But trying to pinpoint that is just, it's kind of difficult. Somebody's going to get a surprise 1 to 2 inches. And I say surprise, I know someone's going to see it. It's hard to tell you exactly where it is. I'm going to be completely honest with you. That's just kind of the setup we have tomorrow. And really, once I see it show up on radar satellite, we can kind of track it like a pop-up storm or a line of thunderstorms developing, but it really hasn't formed yet. But all the ingredients are there for that little burst of snow late tomorrow evening. So for Charlotte, south, if you live in Rock Hill, Monroe, Lancaster, Wadesboro, Cheraw, all the areas that rarely see snow and seem to miss out, your best chance of seeing snow tomorrow is 4, 5, 6, 7 o'clock in the evening. And again, it'll be really cool. It'll fall real fast. It may even collect on everything and then move out, and then it's gone. So by late tomorrow, the temperature is still above freezing. After midnight, though, we start to clear out, northwest winds develop, and by early Saturday morning, this is where I think the biggest road issues. If I was worried about traveling, this is the time frame right here, 7 a.m. Look at these temperatures. Even if you see all rain tomorrow, the road's wet, grass is wet, everything that's wet, it's going to freeze. We're going to see a refreeze. So 29 Rock Hill, 32, even with a drop, even without any snow on the ground, it all melted, we could see a refreeze. And up in here, it could be really slick. So if you're worried about traveling during the day tomorrow, you're probably going to be okay. It just might take you longer. Friday night and Saturday, definitely more of a threat to be icy. The temperature will warm up above freezing pretty quickly Saturday morning. So if you can postpone a trip until later in the morning, you know, it should be in and out of here pretty quickly. Okay. I have not adjusted the map much tonight. I'm working on it right now. I don't see any major reason to change this map right now. I really think a trace to 1 inch. I actually feel very confident with the totals up in here. I think if there's going to be an area of surprise, it's going to be down in here with that burst of snow. Again, is it going to burst to 4 inches? No. Is it going to burst to 3 inches? No. It could be at a surprise 1 to 2 inch, probably at the highest, but probably an inch. A lot of melting going on. So a lot of times people will say, well, I remember we weren't supposed to get much snow and we got 2 feet. That never happens. I think people just, I don't know why people say that, but that never happens. We get surprised by the amount. We never get surprised by snow. It either is going to be a little bit of snow or a lot of snow. The amount of snow can be a surprise, but rarely do we go, there's no snow in the forecast, and then we get a foot of snow. I've worked in meteorology my whole life. That has literally never happened. I think what happens more often than not is people miss the forecast, or they're not up to date on what's going on, and they're surprised because they weren't in tune with what was going on. And that could happen in some locations tomorrow. Other people have been so in tune, they're going to ask where the snow is, when in reality, we don't think there's going to be that much to the south. So this is why snow forecasting is not only meteorologically difficult, communication-wise, it's very difficult, because people will hear all kinds of different numbers and think and expect different things, and tomorrow will not come out the way anyone expected, even if it's exactly what I say. I'll be wrong no matter what tomorrow. That's just kind of what happens oftentimes in these situations. So I try to make it easy with the boom and bust forecast. And the reason I show this is, I'm going to move my head out of the way here, is to kind of show you what's most likely. Because the goal of any meteorologist isn't to tell you what could happen. They're to tell you what's most likely to happen. So what's most likely going to happen tomorrow for the Charlotte area is this: 60% chance of a trace to 1 inch. The next most likely thing to happen is 1 to 2 inches, but that's just a 20% chance. Then the third most likely thing is 15% chance of 0. A very small likelihood, or small, it's not even a likelihood, 4% chance of 2 to 4, and then the outlier is 4 inches. So that kind of lays out the possibility. We call this curve kind of a bell curve in some cases, where the highest probability is going to be the top of the bell, and then it flares out. It's traced to 1 inch, and then next will be 1 to 2 inches. That's kind of what we're expecting. So timing wise, what can you expect for timing? Well, we know the precipitation's already here, so I'm going to start this at 4 a.m. Move my head back down out of the way so you guys can see it a little better. I expect across Charlotte, and this includes just north and south of I-85 slightly, rain and snow mixing throughout the day. Impacts are pretty low. On our scale from lowest to extreme, it's down here, pretty much low. Here's the biggest issue, the refreeze. tomorrow night after sunset, after 5:30, the temperature starts dropping, and closer we get to midnight, refreeze becomes a big issue. Now, for everybody who lives north of Charlotte, Interstate 40 corridor and back into the mountains, this is what you're going to see. Much heavier snow, so impacts during the day of snow and sleet could be pretty significant. Not expecting freezing rain. This isn't really an ice setup. Hazardous travel. This is if we get really heavy snow that overcomes the warm temperatures and still coats the roads. But honestly, you can drive through that. You just got to go slower. Now, the real issue will be the refreeze, because unlike the Charlotte area, which will be black ice, this could be like a glacier, because you could have slush on the roads that freezes solid tomorrow night and becomes really slick. And what about power outages? Well, the deal with power outages, this is a wet, heavy snow. It's a really high liquid content snow. Typical snow on average is a 10-to-1 liquid to snow ratio. This could be 6 or 8-to-1. So a very, not fluffy snow, very sticky, sludgy, kind of cement-like snow. And that sticks to everything, tree branches, power lines, and it adds a lot of weight because it's heavy and wet. So occasionally you can get some power outages and some trees coming down. Not expect a ton, but a heavy wet snow usually can be putting some weight on some things. Now, the weather impacts, the Weather Service has developed this product, and I really kind of like it because it shows the overall impacts. This includes on travel, on power lines, on everything. Just kind of, it's all-encompassing like impact graphic. And it really shows the highest impact from the storm is going to be the big mountains around Asheville, where we'll see the highest snow, because that's where it's going to be the coldest and the wettest all combined, so the heaviest snow potential. And then Interstate 40 from, Asheville all the way to Raleigh, potentially some low wind impacts. And again, it's low. We're not talking on a scale from 1 to 5. It's basically 2. The limited one is just because of a refreeze and maybe some snow in those areas. So that's kind of my thinking right now. I will kind of keep an eye on the radar tonight, because the one thing that's interesting about watching these systems now that we're kind of in the last hours before they hit, they're really hitting right now, is, what is this first band isn't going to do much as far as snow. It's going to be a mix and it's going to be melting. You start looking back to see, what's going on with the rest of the system. And if I do the wider view, I'm going to turn just the radar on. There's no need to look at clouds here. You kind of see the upper low back here. This is the upper low right here. The surface low is right here. Now the surface low is going to go to the coast and crank up. Once that develops, it'll start pulling this moisture back around, and this might become more of a, what we call a deformation zone. That'll be what I'll be watching tonight. This is interesting and fun right now. This is really the main show back here. When is that going to come through? And you could see it's snow. I've been looking at reports out of Tennessee and northern Alabama. Really heavy snow in there, especially in the higher elevations here of northern Alabama into southern Tennessee, like the Chattanooga area and the Tennessee Valley. That'll be, so where does that go? Is that going to ride up this way, or is that going to keep pushing to the east? I've seen some big events in Charlotte start out here and then move in this direction. So that'll be something to watch. The other thing is, that upper low you hear me talk a lot about is looking at the water vapor loop. You kind of see what's going on here. This is a big sprawling upper level system here, but this area here is called the dry slot. Man, this thing can shut off the moisture. So after the first batch of moisture moves in, there could be a period tomorrow where nothing happens, and everyone will be tweeting at me and commenting, "Where's the snow? Where's the rain?" And we'll be like, it'll be a big break maybe if that happens. But then this thing back here swings through, and it's like you get that uptick. So I honestly think tomorrow, for most areas, the big action in the mountains and foothills could happen early, then a lull, and then that upper low coming through. That's really for Charlotte. And I'm not trying to be too Charlotte-centric here, but if Charlotte area south is going to see snow, it's going to be that secondary wave of moisture coming through. So let's go back real quickly, because I know folks are kind of in and out of this since this is a live stream. You can go back and watch it, the replay. It's just real quickly go back through this, because I think it tells the story pretty well of where that rain snow line is during the first half. So you can see, like, if you're in Charlotte, yeah, you might get some flakes early, but most of the day is going to be rain until this thing comes through right here. That's why I said the afternoon hours to me. And really, honestly, even up into the foothills, this shows rain. This is likely going to be snow. And I've had a couple questions about thunder snow or thunder sleet. Because there's such cold air aloft, if, even though 35 doesn't seem very warm, the difference between the ground and the upper air temperature is the same as if we had the summer. So, in the summer, the numbers might be different, but the difference between them is the same. So in the summer, it might be 90 at the ground, and it might be 0 at, let's say, 10,000 feet. Well, tomorrow, it's going to be 35, but it's going to be like minus 40 at 10,000 feet. So the delta T, we call it the delta temperature, could be very similar. So it could be a 50, 60, 70 degree difference between the ground and that altitude, and that temperature difference is what causes convection or thunderstorms. So there's a possibility with the cold, the really cold air aloft dropping in on the backside, we could see some thunder snow. And anytime you see thunder snow, while it's cool and it sounds awesome, and I just picture Jim Cantori jumping up and down like everybody else, it causes really fast, just like a thunderstorm, really heavy precipitation, and it comes down really, and it drags cold air to the surface. So you can get really heavy bursts of snow, sleet, or grapple, we call it, can come down really quickly. So that'll be something to watch tomorrow. And again, just like a lot of this, I know that could happen somewhere in here, probably more likely in here. The exact location is kind of tough to say until it forms. So that's kind of what we're looking at tonight. I will leave you with the snowfall map because I'm going to make some adjustments to this, and by 11 o'clock I'll have my final call map, but I honestly don't think I would change too much with this right now. I kind of like the way this is set up, and that's kind of what I'm thinking tonight. So as always, tune in tonight at 11 on NBC Charlotte and WCNC. We'll have the latest. Of course, I will post updates tonight, and first thing tomorrow, we've got crews all over the place tomorrow. We'll have them in the mountains. Chris Mulcahy's going to be up in Blowing Rock. We'll have somebody in Hickory. We'll have someone in Statesville. We'll have people in Charlotte. I'll be back working tomorrow as well during the day and the evening, coming in tomorrow, and we'll have you covered with this thing. Again, I don't expect this to be a really huge deal if people just are smart. Snow is one of the rare weather events that's kind of fun for some of us, and it can be enjoyable if you just are safe with it. It's not going to cause major issues, and with the way things have gone last year and now starting this year, maybe this will be a fun little event for everyone to get out and hang out in, because by the weekend it's sunny and dry and we're back into the 40s. Have a great night, everybody, and make sure you head over to our website, grab our app as well. You can keep up to date on the system through the next 24 to 36 hours. Have a great night, everybody. If I don't see you at 11, I'll